Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jade and today I am doing my top books of the year. So this is my top 10 books of 2019 and I'm very excited about it because I had actually a pretty damn good reading year when I look at these books. So I think we should just jump into it. This has to be mentioned because it was one of my favorite reads of the year. So my first, they're not in order by the way, but one of my favorite books of the year, probably my most favorite book of the year, is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. It's the second book to A Court of Thorns and Roses. First book sucks, just read it so you can get to the second one. That is what we all know to be true. And this is a beautiful, beautiful book that I am so in love with. The story is kind of like a fairy tale retelling, but totally different. And it's this girl who ends up killing a wolf in the woods and gets taken by a fairy prince to the fairy realm to live with him as like repentance for her murdering his friend. But what she doesn't know is that the land has been taken over by someone and they're under a curse and there's a lot happening. And then the second book just like expands on everything to a degree that is unprecedented and is beautifully done, and I want to reread this book right now. And it's so big. But like I like that it's big because it's such a good book that like everything's so important. Love it, love it. 5 out of 5 stars, of course. And if you guys haven't read it, I'd be surprised, unless you don't like the author or her writing style. But that book is like the book to read by her. You just have to get through the first one, which I did not enjoy very much, but the second one's really good. And now this would be like also a #1 spot if I put this in order, which is why I didn't. And that's Gemina by J. Kristoff and Amy Coffin. It's the second book to the Illuminates Files, and I love this book more than anything. And the reason for that is simply because this book is like reading the best action movie you've ever seen. It involves a ship that gets taken over by a team of assassins, like 24 assassins that come to take over the ship, because it like doesn't even seem connected to the first book, and then you realize it totally is. So I won't spoil too many things, but and then there are 2 people who don't get captured because they weren't in like the ballroom at the time, and that is the daughter of the captain of the ship, who has spent her whole life like training to fight with her dad and doing things like that. She's really good at fighting. And the other guy is the son of like a drug lord that was doing some illegal drug things on the ship. So not only does this book have trained assassins, an alien fucking whoops, an alien species that reminds me of the movie Alien, where they burst out of you, like really good romance, but like it's not like just thrown in there. It like makes sense. It's always kind of been there, and they're finally just realizing it because of everything that's happening. Betrayal, so much death, the best death. My favorite part of the whole book is that my speech just got really interrupted by my boyfriend FaceTiming me, so I'm not exactly sure where I left off. But my favorite part of this book was it shows pictures of all the assassins, and then throughout the book, while things happen, you see them get X'd out. And that's not really a spoiler, that's just like my favorite part of the book that I wanted to mention because that just made it so like, oh my god. I don't know, that was like a really good addition, I feel like, and one of my favorite things. My next, like, this would be like #2 if I made this a list, book is Furthermore by Tahara Mafi. This is a middle grade series that I freaking love so much. So much. This book takes place in this really magical world that's like full of color, and the main character is completely white. Everything about her is white. Her hair, her skin, her eyes, just completely white. And she's like the absence of color in a world full of color. So another thing about this world is every single person has a magical gift that they get, and when they turn 12, they show their gift at this big ceremony, and they get judged on the quality of their gift and like given special quests, kind of like if the what's it called, like the elders of the town feel like their gift could be used to do something, they'll send them off to do it. So it's like a fun quest. And more than anything, the main character wants to get to go and find her father, who disappeared a few years ago. She wants to figure out what happened to him, so she wants to get a quest to do that. Only the thing is that she never really got a magical power. At least, like, it kind of leads you to feel that way, and it ends up being so good. It goes so good. She goes to this, like, mystical world that's totally nothing like hers, because hers is full of, like, happiness and things like that. And then this other magical world has, like, every city has different rules, and if you don't follow them, you might be killed, because they don't have magic, so they eat magic. Cannibalism in a middle grade. Love that, though. It's a good time. I love the series so much. Every different world they have is so beautiful and interesting, and it's so whimsical and beautiful. The next book I have is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I just really loved this book. This book is about a girl who goes to a school that was specifically made for kids that were just, like, really special, like really good at robotics. The main character is like the next Sherlock Holmes. Like, everyone has a special talent, and the school helps to teach them, which is, I think, why I love this book so much, is the setting is just so good. Like, a school that was made for kids that obviously are going to change the world and help them utilize that, and like they don't have to pay for it. I think it's just a really great idea. But what happened is, when this school was first built, like 30 years ago, the man who built it had a wife and daughter who were kidnapped and went missing. And it's like a never been solved mystery. And when they went missing, there was a letter written in like cut up magazine things, and it was signed Truly Devious. So it's been a mystery that no one's been able to solve, and the main character actually gets into the school because she is going to solve the mystery. And my god, is it good. I actually low-key want to reread it. I wonder when the next ones come out. I've read the first two this year. I also read The Vanishing Stair, which I also loved a lot. But now we come to another #1 pick of the year, which is Nevernight by Drake Hitstoff. I said that weird, but we gotta love this book. I don't even know how to like describe this book because it's so amazing, and like the description will do no justice, but it's about this girl who wants to get into this infamous secret assassin school so she can get revenge on the people who killed her father, who are like basically the people who rule this country. Killed her father because he was a politician, and she wants to get revenge on them, so she wants to get into this secret assassin school. But for one, it's not easy to get into it. You have to kill someone and collect their teeth, and then you have to find the school, and then you have to pass all these series of trials, and only 4 people get accepted a year, and everyone else becomes like servants that still help them, but they're not like assassins. So it's a really big competition, and when you're having a competition with future assassins, there's going to be some deaths and betrayals, and it's so good. For one, the world is amazing. And my favorite part of this book is it utilizes footnotes. And the footnotes just expand on the world. So it'll be talking about something, and then it'll have a footnote. And they're always literally hilarious. Like, the footnotes are just always super funny. My favorite one is they encounter a sand kraken. And then there's a footnote kind of describing what the world knows about sand krakens, of a scientist who did research on sand krakens in a lab and did like all these mazes to see how intelligent it was, and he low-key taught it how to escape on accident, and it escaped and killed everyone, and like it was just funny. I loved it. Love this book. Such a good book. I cannot wait to continue with it. Amazing. The next book I have is an obvious choice, and that is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I loved this book a lot. I listened to it on audiobook, which I think was actually a really good way to listen to it, or to get the story. But this is about a actress who used to be like the biggest actress of all times in like the early days, like the 60s, the 50s. Yes, 50s through the 80s. And then she just kind of completely disappears from the screen. And her whole life was kind of scandalous because she had 7 different husbands. And so a journalist finally gets to write her an exclusive story, which has never been told before. And just, her tale kind of follows the 7 husbands she's had, and each one was like a stepping stone in her life. And there's so much more to her life than anyone could have ever guessed. And it's pretty awesome and bad at the same time. Like, not bad, but like bad things happen. And it's just so good. So good. Now, the next book I have is also a number 1, but probably my number one because of where it hits me in my heart. And that's The Tyrants' Tomb by Rick Riordan. It's the 4th book to the Trials of Apollo series, which is like the 3rd series. Percy Jackson, Lost Hero, Trials of Apollo, kind of in that order. And I love this book more than life itself. It's, I think, the best book in the series. The 3rd one, if you guys have been kept up with, has a greatly awful thing that happens. And I really liked what this book did with that, because it didn't just like move on. It definitely, what I love about this series, because I don't want to give anything away, is that it's so much more mature than the other ones. Apollo is a god, and he was sent down to Earth in human form as a punishment for what Zeus sees as him kind of causing the events in The Lost Hero. And he has no powers, and he has to go on these quests to free the 5 oracles because they've been captured by another enemy, which is scarier than all the other ones because it's more ruthless. And I think when an enemy is a human instead of a monster, it's a lot more difficult for the characters because they are having to fight people instead of monsters. But it talks a lot about death and grief and abuse, because Apollo kind of realizes that Zeus is kind of an abusive father, which is interesting to see in a book. And my favorite part about this book in particular is it takes Apollo, like the Greek myths, what he did in the myths. He did pretty awful stuff, and like he's finally realizing what he did and how it wasn't okay, and he's finally like feeling guilty and sorry for the things he've done and trying to apologize for those things. And I think that's really important because he's like growing after living for 3,000 years, and I like that. Best book ever. And I have to wait until November of next year before the next one comes out, and I'm really pissed. And it's also the last one in the series, which makes me even more mad, because if there, I don't even know what he'll do for another series, but if he doesn't continue doing this world, I'll be pissed. I'll be pissed. Alright, but the last book I have in physical form, I have a couple audiobooks that I don't own. I just finished this yesterday, actually. So I think the last 2 books I'm reading of the year would make it on my top 10, but one of them I'm finishing tonight when I'm working, so it won't be on this list. But quick mention to These Witches Don't Burn. Love it. Definitely probably going to make it on this list, I have to say. But that is The Spellbook of the Lost and Found by Murray Foley Doyle. I have wanted to read this book for literally forever, and I finally did. And I'm so glad I did. It was amazing. Not only were the main characters super awesome, all of the side characters were extremely developed. I feel like I loved the characters. Like I loved her characters. They were all really interesting, and I loved every part of this book. And there's a lot of representation in this book, which is super amazing. Actually, so in These Witches Don't Burn, there's a lot of representation, which was just really cool to read 2 books in a row like that are about witches who are like gay or bi. Like, I love that. But this is about a town in Ireland or Scotland, actually. I don't really know, but that was kind of fun to read from a different setting too. And there is a spell that is done, that is found in this random spell book that just kind of appears at people, to get something that they've lost returned to them. But the thing is the people don't make a sacrifice, and you're supposed to make a sacrifice of something that's important to you to get back something else that's important to you. And, well, because of that, everyone in town starts losing things. So many things just start disappearing all the time. And the like main characters can't believe that this is real. Even at the end of the book, they can't believe that what's happening is real, because it just doesn't seem like it was be real, which I thought was also a really cool thing. But so it's sort of like going on a mission to fix what they've done. And they're also discovering these diary pages of these girls who they think did the spell, which is a very fun twist. Love that. Really good book. Love it. Love it. Love it. Now, the last two I have, because I don't have them physically, is With the Fire on High. This is a contemporary book that I just super duper loved. It's about this girl who's probably 17 because she's in her senior year. She's getting ready to graduate. She has a 2-year-old daughter at home, so she's juggling school, work, and a daughter. And she ends up signing up for this cooking class because she is like the best cook ever. She loves cooking, but she cooks with instinct and not with precision. So she has a lot of trouble in this class where she's having to cook with precision. And she ends up, it's sort of just like following her story and her finding what she wants to do with her life and managing everything while also having a little girl and kind of getting back into dating and discovering her passion for being a chef. And it's just a really wonderful, insightful book about a topic that you don't often read from, in a perspective you don't often see. So I super duper loved it. And then the last book I have to talk about is Crease. That's just not the right. Is Circe. Love that. Who's also, the author also wrote The Song of Achilles, which I read this year as well, but I chose Circe because I really loved the story. It wasn't like an action-packed story. It was almost just like looking back on the life of Circe and what led her up to where she is now and how she wants to live her life. And if you don't know the story of Circe, she is a very infamous witch in Greek mythology. So her story is kind of getting retold from when she was born. She was the daughter of a god and a sea nymph, how she was kind of cast out of her world and forced to live on her island, her meeting with Odysseus, her creation of a sea monster, just like everything she did in her life. And it was just really good, and I loved it because it was so detailed and immersive. Like, I don't think I've ever felt, well, I have, but it's not often that I feel so immersed in the book. Just the descriptions of everything were so vivid and beautiful, and it was just so wonderful, and I loved it so much. And it was just like a good, like, not action-packed, but just like, I love Greek mythology. It's always been my favorite thing. That's why I love Rick Riordan. I read so many books on it. So getting a retelling that's really accurate to all of Greek mythology, but kind of spins it a little bit, was so good. And I just really, really loved it. And that is my top 10 books of 2019. And I'm very happy with what I read this year. So, in the comments down below, you guys have to tell me some of your favorite books of the year, if you've read any of mine and what you think, like if you liked them as much as I did. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys today, but I'll see you next year. Ha ha ha. This won't even come up till 2020 anyways, so. But I love you all so very much, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye bye!